Hi you guys, welcome back to another Vlogmas video. Tonight's Vlogmas video, I'm going to be doing a little video of just freezing my breast milk and talking to you guys all about breastfeeding and breast milk. I'm finding it so convenient for me to just kind of vlog and make videos of things that I'm already getting done or doing. So, hope you guys like this video. If you're not into breast milk, breastfeeding, all that, then go ahead and skip it. But that's all this video is going to be about. Before I get started, I want to apologize for yesterday's vlog because I was messing with the brightness way too much and the brightness was way too high in that video and it was really bothering me, but I didn't know how to fix it after I had already vlogged it. And so I could have either still edited it and uploaded the video, which I did, or I could have just not had a vlog. But I chose to still upload it because for the most part, it's just me talking that on those parts that you can't see. And so it's just like super bright, but hopefully this video is a lot better. All right, so before I get started, I'm just gonna go over a few products that I use with feeding, pumping, and then my milk freezing situation. When I'm feeding or nursing my child, I use a Haka, which is a silicone breast milk catcher, and so I put that on the opposite side that I'm feeding on. So if I'm feeding on the right side, I'll put my Haka on the left side, and this just catches milk basically. So if you don't know, when you are breastfeeding, your child is feeding off of one breast at a time, but your milk comes out from both sides, and so the opposite side will still have milk and it will still come out depending on your supply. But instead of just letting the milk soak into your shirt or into like a nursing pad, you can actually collect that milk and save it. And that's typically how I've collected all my milk this time around with my son. I did this a lot with my daughter as well, but this is like the most I've removed myself from pumping. So all I use is the Haka. I do also use the LV milk collector or catcher. I purchased that as well, and that is so convenient, like on the go, or if I'm at someone else's house, or if I have guests over, I just place it in my bra and I can collect my letdown like that. Out of the two, I do like the Haka better because of the suction is a lot stronger and I collect way more milk. And not only that, but the LV only collects, I think, 3 to 4 ounces, while my Haka collects up to 5. But also the suction on the LV isn't as strong as the Haka. So those are the two products I use when nursing. So I do not pump often at all. I only pump if I'm engorged and for some reason I'm away from my child a long period of time and I haven't been able to feed him. Or I will pump if I have a night out and I'm drinking and I'm not feeding him because of the alcohol in my breast milk. So I don't necessarily pump daily unless I feel like my supply is dropping, and then I will try to like do a night pump, and that's it. The reason I choose not to pump often is because I do have a negative association with breast pumping from my first child. And so ever since that experience, I just kind of try to avoid pumping as much as I can. I don't think I mentioned this, but the breast pump I use is the Medela. I don't know which model it is. I can insert a picture, but I've had this one since I literally got home from the hospital with my son, and probably like 2 weeks, a weekend, I purchased this because I had super engorged breast and he wasn't emptying them out, and so I had to pump. And so I've had it ever since then. The parts come with the whole setup, and so I just kind of been using that ever since. But I do have a hack. So I've been doing this hack ever since, I want to say towards like I would say I've been using this hack since my son, my firstborn, back in 2020, because of the dark space, mental space that I got in. So what I do is, so it's like 2 valves and you're supposed to like hold the 2 pumps. But what I do is I block off one of the valves so that I only have 1 pump, and I use my Haka on the other to still collect letdown, and then I just switch. And that system has worked so much for me because then I have a free hand, and that's what drove me into, honestly, depression when I had my son, because I was sitting there and not knowing, and I was just like this, pumping. Couldn't do anything but watch TV or watch people around me, and I did not like that. So that's a hack if you are thinking of breastfeeding, or maybe you are currently breastfeeding and you're just not liking the mobility of it. I know they have the wireless pumps, but honestly, I tried those last time with my daughter. I did not like it. Once again, I did not feel like it was collecting as much as it could because of the suction. And then it also just didn't feel like it was worth it. They're expensive. So I just thought, like, I'm just going to stick with the pump that I've been using as much as I can. And so it's been working 3 kids later. All right, so now I've talked about the supplies that I use for nursing. I've talked about what I use when I'm pumping. Now I'm going to talk about my system for freezing my milk. And this is all new for my 3rd child. I had a different system in the past, but this is the system that I think works best for me and my time efficiency. All right, I don't really know, like, I know the rules of how breast milk works, and I just go by the 444. So it basically is, your milk is good at room temperature for 4 hours. It's good in the refrigerator for 4 days, and supposedly it's good in the freezer. Oh wait, no, it's good in the freezer for 4 years. Unless you have a deep freezer, then I believe it can last up to a year. And so I go by that method. And so what I do is I use that same system when I'm nursing my son. I use the Haka, and whatever milk comes out to the Haka, I place it in a bottle. So this is like the last amount that I received from my last feed, which was 1 ounce. I put it in a bottle and I leave it out on the counter for like 30 minutes just for it to get to room temperature. And then I place it in the refrigerator. And so typically what I do after this is already cool is I just wait until the next feeding, and I do the same thing. Whatever I got from the Haka, I will then put this inside of my pitcher, and then I will use the Haka's, whatever I got in the Haka, to refill this. And I put this back in the refrigerator once it chills, or once it gets to room temperature. The reason I started this system this time around is because I was, like, based on how often I was feeding him, especially coming home from the hospital, like how often you're feeding him and the milk is collecting and building up. There was a point where I had like so many bottles of milk filled in the refrigerator. And so what I did do is I would like marry them, like just pour whatever's already in the refrigerator together to keep filling. But then I would still have a lot of milk. And so before I would freeze them, I would just get overwhelmed with how many different bottles I had in the refrigerator. Because the more bottles you have in the refrigerator, the more bottles you have to wash. And so I was like, how can I minimize the amount of bottles that I have to wash? This is how. All right, if you guys hear anybody in the back, just know it's my kids playing in the room or my husband playing his video game. But this is the system that has worked best for me. So after this is already filled or I've reached my 4 days, I basically just mix this. And I love that this comes with the little, obviously this whole system is for breast milk, but I love the fact that it comes with this to mix it, because all the fat, it's obviously good fat, but the fat gets on the edges of your bottles after being in the refrigerator for a long period of time. And I've heard you're not supposed to shake breast milk because you're adding a bunch of bubbles. So I always stir it, but I love this idea of like mixing it with the I don't even know what this thing's called. Mixing it with the centerpiece before I add them into bags. So what I use are just any freezer bags, honestly. I believe the most popular two are the Medela and the Lancino, I don't know. I use these ones just because when I use the Medela one, so Medela is this brand, when I use these bags, they're thicker, and so I would often rip the bag trying to open it, and I honestly just did not like that. So all I do is grab a bag and a measuring bottle. So I like to use this glass bottle that holds 5 ounces, because that's what I'm freezing right now, is 4 to 5 ounces, depending on like if I'm at the end of this and I only have 4 or 3 ounces, I'll still freeze it and just label it. But I like to use one standard measuring system, and so I'll pour everything into here. So I'll fill it up to 5 ounces and then freeze it, put it in the bag and freeze it. And so I'm just gonna show you guys me doing that in just a moment. But before I move on to do all this, I am gonna talk to you guys more about how the next process after freezing my milk. So after placing this express milk into bags, I then put it in my freezer. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys my milk that I recently froze, which was 4 days ago. So this is the last milk I froze. So what I do next is I will freeze all of this milk into the freezer until my freezer is full and I don't have any more space to add any more breast milk. Once my storage is full, I take a crate, one of these bins, and I put the breast milk bags inside, and I just keep them in order based on the date. And then once this is full, I take this into my deep freezer, and I keep it organized. I keep it organized based on date. So my oldest milk, the milk I pumped as fresh as my son being born in the hospital, is on top all the way up until recent. So yes, every time I take one of these into the deep freezer, I remove all the bends and I put it on the bottom, and then I put them all back on top. I know that's a lot of information, and honestly, it's a process that gets easier each child you have. And so this is a system that I started with my son. I purchased 10 of these with my first son, and I filled them all up, and I still have those 10. This is my 10th one. And so that goes to show how much breast milk I have been able to freeze in less than 2 months. My son is not even 2 months old. He will be 2 months on Monday, on the 18th. So yeah, I have been able to create a freezer stash from, honestly, all my letdown. All right, so that is all the explanation I have to do. The rest of this video is gonna just be me showing you exactly the steps I do in the process, but I'm not taking any milk to the deep freezer just because I don't have enough in my freezer. So I'm gonna freeze more in this freezer. But like I said, once that gets full, I place it into these bins. The bins get placed into my deep freezer. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started with freezing my milk. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video / vlog. Make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you aren't already, and keep on watching.